All right. Welcome to chapter one of this amazing book. If you are a day trader, investor, any of the above, and you want to understand how to just get this book, get this book for real. I wasn't sure if it was going to apply to day trading so much, but I have been absolutely impressed. So thank you, Morgan, for doing this. All right, so let's go over chapter one study guide. Let's see. Morgan opens up by reminding us that people don't see money through logic, they see it through the lens of their own experiences. I just want to stop there. I know we got like one sentence in. If you trade and you're a day trader, you need to understand that you don't see day trading through logic. You're going to see it through your own experiences. And that's why it's so important that you work on those experiences, right? That's why I have the 50 trade orb challenge. There's a link down below. You can grab it for free. You can take the challenge. It will help you, okay? Because it'll give you the opportunity to have an experience like you've never had before. I know that seems crazy, but when you talk to people that have taken this challenge, that's what they tell you. They learned that they weren't seeing their strategies through their own logic like they should. They were seeing it through their past experience. And let me ask you, how has your experience been day trading? All right, enough said. I had to ask myself that same question. Let's keep going. Every decision about saving, spending, investing is shaped by each person's life story. Someone who grew up during inflation fears inflation. I'm kind of fearful right now. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, yeah, this inflation's no fun, but someone who only saw markets go up assume risk is low. All right, there are no crazy decisions with money, just different world experiences, right? Just think about that. And think about your personal experience with money in the past. That's going to translate into everything: how you save, how you spend, how you look at money, how you look at risk. So you apply that to day trading now, right? You're gonna look through the same lens, looking at your strategies, looking at how you execute trades and why you move your stop loss and how much you risk. All of that, right, is through the lens of your experience. So knowing that gives you the power to make the changes you know you need to make, right? All right, so key themes: experience, knowledge. All right, what you have lived through becomes your your version of the truth. All right, two people can study the same market but react differently because their personality histories aren't the same. Their personal histories. I've seen this. I have 100% seen this. I've seen people trading the same strategy, one's short, one's long, using the same indicator. Okay, it's an interesting thing, you know. I've worked in enough discords to see. All right, money is deeply emotional. All right, this is a big one. I've talked about this in a lot of my other videos. Financial behavior is rarely about spreadsheets. It's about feelings of fear, security, pride, ego, identity, all that stuff, right? FOMO is a real thing. If you've been a trader for any amount of time, you understand this logic. You understand how FOMO feels. So, logic alone can't explain why smart people make poor financial decisions. Okay, you read Market Wizards, and you got two guys standing side by side. One becomes a 100 millionaire, the other one becomes a 50 millionaire and then goes broke because he throws every bit of risk on the table, right? That when you read these stories, it's like, what is this, right? So, logic alone can't explain why smart people make poor financial choices, okay? I could say the same for traders, right? It's not your intelligence, guys. It's not. If it was, I would not be successful, okay? I'm pretty average, all right? Okay. Luck and risk shape perception. All right. How many of you guys have ever gotten lucky? Okay. I turned $400 into $6,500 in really just a matter of hours. Yeah, that was a good run. And if I did that run today, I would have definitely kept some of that $6,500 and never lost it. But because that happened very early on in my trading, I lost that $6,500 the next day. Because what was my brain thinking? It shaped my perception of going, dude, this is easy. This is easy. Here comes here comes millionaire city, like no, in no time, right? And that misshaped my perception because it was luck. All right. And I had over risked, and luck and risk hit at the same time in my favor, which is unusual. And anyway, so luck and risk shape perception. Our results with money often depend on timing and environment more than intelligence. Okay. If I was born, 2000, or well, let's just say I started my investment portfolio 2008, right after the crash. Like during the crash, I'm like, everybody's scared, but I'm just going to invest. I'm going to put in, $500 a week, which I know is a lot of money, right? $500 a week is a lot of money. Let's just say I did. Dude, I'd be a bazillionaire, right? I'd be a bazillionaire. So we need to understand that. So that's why a lot of when I'm talking to people about how they day trade, it's more or less about their intelligence, because I know a lot of times we feel like our intelligence is attacked when we're not successful, but it's more about just the environment you put yourself in and the kind of perception that you allow in this market, right? So those born in boom see opportunity. Those born in recession see danger. That's very true. Okay, everyone's playing a different game. Investors have different time horizons, goals, and risk tolerances. Okay, judging others' choices by your standard leads to misunderstanding. So if you're trying to look at some other trader, this is why I know people have a hard time copy trading, right? Like being in a group where there's a leader who makes really good money and he's doing his trades live, and you still have people struggling, right? And that's because they're judging that person by their own standards, which leads to a misunderstanding on how trade management, risk management, all that stuff works. And I've watched it over and over. I'm a big believer. It takes specific training to be able to copy somebody, and it takes specific like practice and training for you to become that person, right? Who people are going to copy. It's not just like, oh, just do what I do and you'll make money. Like a lot of people, that's what they're hunting for. And I'm just like, yeah, it's kind of possible, but it's not really what's best for you, right? That's going to warp your perception because you don't even understand what they're doing. All right. So core quotes here. Your personal experiences with money make up about, a fraction of what's happened in the world, but maybe 80% of how you think the world works. All right. So that's why I read these books, right? And I've got another book. What is it? Lords of Money. That's another one I've started. I'm not sure how much that's actually going to apply to day trading, other than helping me understand how money markets work, right? Understanding how to invest long term. That's not like a day trading book. That is a how am I going to invest in my future? I'm 40-ish years old. I know. Well, slow down. Don't judge me. Go Gen X. And I want long-term results when I'm 50, 60 that, I'm looking for, these kinds of returns and these kind of, that kind of stuff, right? I don't do that in my day trading, right? I barely consider market conditions, right? I may pay attention to red folder news and things like that, but I don't really care all that much about what's going on economically. If I'm just in at 9:30 and I'm out by 10:15, what does that have to do with the market? Like macro stuff, not a whole lot. I mean, of course, I do pay attention, keep in the back of my mind, but it doesn't really play a big role. So I don't get caught up in all the news. Like I don't read Bloomberg or watch and listen to how doom and gloom, because doom and gloom gets announced and people take shorts and then they put stop losses on the chart, and then the market moves up to their stop losses, and all of a sudden we went bullish for half the day. Right? That's just how this thing works. It's kind of crazy. Okay. All right. So every decision people make with money makes sense to them in that moment. That's very important to understand, right? So when you're entering a trade, you're making a decision, right? That makes sense to you in that moment. And that's what you got to train yourself in, right? It really needs to make logical sense what you're doing. It doesn't need to make emotional sense. A lot of times, I hear, how could I found a decent strategy, and I hear the word decent. I'm like, oh, here it comes. I found a decent strategy, but I need to make it better. And I'm like, well, is it profitable? And they say, well, when I back tested, it does. And it would if I would follow it, but just not a lot. And I'm like, okay, so you found a profitable strategy. You should be trading that pretty mechanical as you can, right? And I just hear, well, I need to make it better. And it pretty much comes down to the fact, and I say this from my own experience as well. Who likes losing? Anybody? I don't. I have an ego problem in the markets, and I understand that about myself. It's weird, but I do. I don't like losing. I like being right in the markets, and that's just not a good thing, because I feel like you can't just choose to be right or wrong, right? You need to just play the odds. You need to play the statistics. You need to roll the dice and figure it out. So when I enter a trade, I most of the time, unless I'm super distracted, I will visualize the win and visualize the loss, and I will be okay with both. I will think about, I've got 8,000, whatever. And if I win it, I'm going to have 9,200. If I lose, I'm going to have 7,800, right? Whatever. And I'll be like, I'm okay with both of that. Like, market goes up and down, right? Your account just doesn't grow vertically. That would be fantastic, but it doesn't. And that usually helps me be okay. Right? So that's something that I do that really helps. So yeah, absolutely. I hope that little nugget helps somebody. Don't assume others are irrational, or try to understand their background, right? And I kind of apply this to like people who are trying to follow a group or trying to follow other people. It's hard to understand unless they've shared what their actual background is, on what their own filter is, right? What their own logic is. There is, especially when it comes to discretion trading, there's a lot going on upstairs, right, in the mind. I may be slow, but not every trader out there is slow. A lot of them are very, very, very smart, and there's a lot of things going on up here that if you're trying to follow and you don't understand, then it may seem irrational. I've entered trades and people were like, "What are you doing, dude? This is like the top." And we get like a huge retracement, and they're like, I told you. And it misses my stop loss, and then it just keeps, and then it reverses and goes back up, and then we hit a take profit. And it's like, oh wow, how did you call that? It's like, well, I didn't call it. I followed my plan that I had built, and I rolled the dice, and I see if I was going to win or lose this one. That's it. That's the mentality I've learned to have. And until I was able to be a good loser, best loser wins, and be someone who just looks to see, will this trade work out or not? And not be stuck. Like, did I get it right? I had to stop that, because that emotionally invested me into a single trade. And I'd rather be emotionally invested into the past 100 trades. Okay. Realize your beliefs about money are not universal truths. I'll just let that one sit. Respect that financial decisions are emotional reflections of personal history. Okay. So as you make decisions, you need to understand that they're going to be reflections of your personal history. How can you change that? Well, you can study and learn how markets work in multiple macro environments. Study recessions, study booms, right? And even read other stories about people who went through those booms, right? Market Wizards is a great book. It gets a lot of like people that are very spread out through, all different time frames, and they talk about their personal experiences with money and investing and history. It's great. It's great. And you can pull little nuggets like that just to help you understand on what's going on, right? So awareness of bias is the first step towards better choices. If you know you were born in a booming, time, and you have no fear of risk, it might be good to understand that, right? I understand that I'm a Gen Xer. Okay, even though I was born in 82, I don't care. I label myself as a Gen Xer. A long time ago, Gen X was like 84 and under, but millennials felt there wasn't enough of them, so they changed it. That's my opinion. But yeah, so Gen X right here all the way. I was into like rollerblading and surfing and active action sports and thrills and, like craziness, right? Motorcycle riding, I loved it. Adrenaline junkie. I can't let that come to the charts. And I'm telling you I have. I'm telling you I have. And I can't let that bring me to the charts because I will risk like you've never seen risk before. And it's not good, especially for long-term investments and especially for that day trading. Okay. But me being aware of that bias helps me to understand myself on how I approach the charts. If I start to get excited, I need to calm down, right? Mine is like if my hands sweat, I'm done. I back away for the day. It's one or two things. Either I'm too excited or I'm just too flat out emotional. Okay. So let's get into some reflection questions. All right. What early money experiences shaped your current financial mindset? All right. I would say mine is that I grew up very like, blue collar suburb, but like we didn't ever need anything. We were not rich by any means. My dad drove junker cars to help save money, do stuff like that. But it was like I didn't ever really go without a meal. I had Nintendo and Nintendo 64s, and like I grew up very suburb. I would say like lower medium income, nothing crazy at all. And but I never wanted, so I didn't go through a depression, right? So saving wasn't like a thing for me, and investing wasn't even really a thought until I was older. All right, even though I was told to. Okay, so I understand that about myself. So as I read Market Wizards and I read other books and I read other people's experiences, I try to ingest their experiences to understand the logic of where they're coming from. So that way I can understand the logic of where I am, and then I can help apply logic to where I want to be, right? Or how I want to invest. Have you ever judged someone's money decisions without knowing their background? Absolutely, I have. It wasn't like a judgment, but I know that I've been like, whoa, why are you doing this? I talked to a buddy who threw his entire life savings at an investment. I was like, worked out. But, in my mind, I'm like, dude, that's risk. That's crazy. How might your money story be limiting or empowering your current behavior? This is huge. This is everything why I'm reading this book. I want to know why I think the way I do and why my emotions respond in the charts the way they do. Because if I can understand that, and I have a good strategy, and I do have a good strategy, you guys can go see it. I don't care. I'll share it publicly. It doesn't matter. It's goofy strategy. I have two strategies, but one of them is kind of goofy, and I call it the dumb strategy because it's so dumbed down anybody can follow it. But it's really hard to follow because it doesn't feel good. It's not a feel good strategy. It only closes at like 18% wins. And people are like, oh my, how do you even make money? And it's like, well, because mathematically it's like a 1 to 6. Okay? So yeah, it makes money, but it is not a easy strategy to follow. All right. So anyway, moving on. How could you recognize different perspectives to improve your trading or investing discipline? There you go. I just read it. That's why I'm reading this book. That's why I'm reading Lords of Money. That's why I'm reading that. I read Market Wizards and the other Market Wizards, the new version. That's why I've read all these books. Jared Tendler. I mean, there's a reason I'm doing this, so that it can help my perspective. So that way I can improve my investing discipline and then also my day trading discipline. Okay. All right. So self-awareness, write down your 3 strongest emotional triggers in trading: fear, greed, impatience, and what experiences you might have formed that might have formed them. Okay. This is good to know. All right. Empathy. Before criticizing other traders' decisions, remind yourself that they might be playing a different time frame or emotional game. Okay. I see this a lot because I do work in some discords where people do kind of follow like the main trader, right? And a lot of times there could be some criticizing on what's going on. And people need to realize that they can't do that, right? Because they can't judge that person, because they've got all kinds of different experiences. But this I've seen. This we need to get away from. right? And I've also seen people share successes and then people hit them up like, dude, what's your strategy? Dude, what are you doing? You know, it's like, well, he may give you a strategy, but he may not be able to actually like give you um, their discretion, right? And their experiences that shapes them where they respond to that strategy in a profitable manner. So sometimes that has to be earned and worked for. And 50 trade orb challenge, guys, I'm telling you, take it. It'll change your whole game. Okay, trust me. All right, separate your rules from your personal beliefs. Your edge improves when you recognize which part of your strategy is emotional. Huge, huge. All right, mini exercise. Journal one major financial decision you regret. Oh, I didn't buy Bitcoin back in, what, man, what was I was exposed to Bitcoin when I was like 16 years old, man. Dude, anyway. Could have spent $100, be multi-million, but whatever, right? Okay. Identify what emotion or belief drove that decision. I was a dumb teenager. Rewrite the same situation using what you know now and what you were wiser, right, or differently. Okay. This is good stuff. And if you're day trading, do this more like, obviously, don't think back when you were a teenager. Think back sooner. Chapter 1 summary in one sentence. We all go, we, we don't go anywhere. We're not going anywhere. We're only looking. We all view money through the fog of our own experiences. Understanding that truth is the foundation of real financial wisdom. Okay. I know I'm reading this book and it's going to be tilted towards day trading, right? But this book is full of so much wisdom on long-term trading. Trading, long-term investing. Don't miss that as well, right? I mean, I'm doing this for day trading, educational content to improve myself as a day trader, to help improve others as a day trader. So I will have a bias here. But as I'm reading this, I am thinking of my hope it's not torn, my long-term portfolio as well. Okay. So guys, this is a good book, whether you're a day trader, long-term investor. If you're either one of those, I hope you become both. All right. Maybe you don't want to day trade. I don't blame you. It's ridiculously hard. It's just crazy. But as far as the long-term investing, I hope everybody decides to do that because you can set and forget and leave it and just buy and hold long-term and everything will be good. Maybe. All right. So I hope this video has been helpful. You guys hit the like button down below. I have those free educational links down below. You can go check out. I don't need your email. I don't need your information. You can just click, go, grab the documents, learn, do the 50 orb challenge. You can come into our Discord for free and hang out, ask me questions. We can chill. But I do have a VIP section if you want to live trade with us. This is where we help people really break down what's going on in their day trading if you're struggling. It's amazing. People that have done it love it. So anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video.